Hey there, folks. Get ready for a wild ride through history with a twist of humor that'll leave you in stitches. Today, we're diving into the untold stories, the scandalous secrets, and the downright naughty facts that your textbooks conveniently forgot to mention. Buckle up because we're about to uncover 10 jaw-dropping historical nuggets that aren't exactly kid-friendly. Now, let's start with a real slap on the wrist, literally. Did you know that there was a spanking squad in the charming town of Bridgeton, New Jersey back in 1910? That's right. Mayor Arthur O. Whitaker, an innovator of his time, introduced the world to his infamous spanking machine right in City Hall. Move over, timeouts, this was the real deal. You see, Mayor Whitaker had a rather unique approach to disciplining young troublemakers. Instead of sending them off to reform schools, he decided to automate the spanking process. How? By building a special machine that delivered the punishment. Talk about thinking outside the box. The severity and intensity of the spanking varied depending on the seriousness of the crime committed. According to Whitaker, over 100 boys and a handful of daring girls had the honor of experiencing his spanking contraption during his 7-year tenure. Now, whether this experiment was a stroke of genius or just a little bit bonkers, well, that's up for debate. So, strap in, ladies and gents, as we uncover more shocking and rib-tickling historical gems. Just remember, these are the stories you won't find in your average history textbook. Hold on tight, folks, because we're about to take a hilariously twisted trip down the winding roads of history. Picture this. In ancient Greece, women suffering from vaginal pains found relief in the most unconventional way possible. Tampons soaked in opium and belladonna. That's right, ladies, forget heating pads and painkillers. The Greeks had a whole different approach to soothing those lady woes. When cocaine started making its mark as a surgical anesthetic in the mid-1800s, medical professionals decided to take things up a notch. You know those tampons we talked about earlier? Well, they started infusing them with cocaine as an antiseptic for gunshot wounds, because nothing screams healing like a blast of cocaine straight to the bullet hole. But the insanity didn't stop there. Now, fast forward to the 19th century, where things took an even more absurd turn. From 1880 to 1900, cocaine was all the rage as a wonder ingredient in various drinks, tonics, and even pills. But wait for it. It was also used for treating toothaches and drumroll gynecological issues. As the 19th century drew to a close, cocaine's reputation took a peculiar turn. It became the go-to remedy for gynecological ailments, and women were prescribed tampons laced with cocaine. I mean, forget about going to the spa or having a bubble bath. Why not have a little me time with a tampon party powered by cocaine? Who needs relaxation and herbal remedies when you can have a gynecological rave? That's right, ladies. Forget about chamomile tea. Apparently, a little touch of cocaine was just what the doctor ordered to handle those down there dilemmas. Move over, herbal remedies, and make way for the coca-crazed gynecologist. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the wacky, bizarre, and downright absurd tales. Ah, the wild and wacky world of historical rebellions. Gather round, folks, as we unravel a tale that will make you question just how rowdy things could get back in the day. We're taking a trip to 17th century London, where chaos reigned supreme during the notorious Fat Tuesday celebrations, also known as Mardi Gras. Now, we all know that Mardi Gras can get a little wild, but the story takes it to a whole new level. During Easter week, the devout citizens of London unleashed their righteous fury upon establishments with questionable reputations. We're talking gambling dens, taverns, and, of course, those infamous pleasure houses. It was like a real-life episode of When Puritans Attack. Normally, these shenanigans ended without too much fuss, but in the year 1668, things took an unexpected turn. That year, King Charles II decided to ban the prayers of heretics, which caused thousands of dissenters to unleash their pent-up rage on the city's brothels. The brothel riots of 1668 were no laughing matter, as the apprentice rebels went on a rampage, wreaking havoc across London. But what happened next is where the story takes a delightfully humorous twist. In response to this unusual uprising, a group of brothel madams and their employees penned what became known as the Petition of Poor Prostitutes. And who did they send this cheeky letter to? None other than the Countess of Castlemaine, the king's mistress herself. Talk about bold moves. Now, this petition was no ordinary plea for sympathy. Oh no, it was a sarcastic masterpiece dripping with mockery. The ladies of the night took aim at the king's scandalous sex life and the high-class courtesans who shared his royal bed. They cheekily requested assistance for their sisters, whose means of existence had been destroyed, and proposed the restoration of brothels using funds from the national treasury. A petition for the people, indeed. Naturally, this audacious petition ignited a storm of satirical writings, poems, and ballads throughout the following year. It was a comedic goldmine, as writers and musicians had a field day, poking fun at the outrageous events and the scandalous lives of the elite. It's safe to say that the Brothel Rebellion of 1668 left a lasting legacy of laughter and ridicule in the annals of history. So there you have it, folks. An uproarious tale of bawdy riots, cunning petitions, and a king with a colorful love life. This is just the beginning of our laughter-filled journey through the pages of the past. Ah, the infamous sacking of Constantinople, a true tale of treachery and turmoil. Brace yourselves, folks, because this one's a doozy. Picture this. The Latin Empire formed by those pesky crusaders in 1204 after they ransacked Byzantium. Now, this short-lived state, with its capital in Constantinople, may not be the most well-known in history, but boy, did it leave a lasting impression. Just imagine, the largest Christian city in the world falling not to infidels, but to a Christian army itself. It's like a mind-boggling plot twist that even Hollywood screenwriters would struggle to come up with. This event sent shockwaves through the corridors of power, from the halls of Pope Innocent III to the far reaches of the Muslim world. Everyone was left scratching their heads, wondering what in the world happened. You see, these crusaders initially set out on a holy mission to reclaim Jerusalem and secure the Holy Sepulchre. But instead of sticking to the script, they veered off course and decided to have a go at Constantinople. And boy, did they go all out. They pillaged, they burned, and they defiled the city, including the magnificent Hagia Sophia. It was like a chaotic shopping spree gone horribly wrong, but with a side dish of sacrilege. The Fourth Crusade delivered a fatal blow not only to Byzantium, but also to the entire Western Europe. You see, Byzantium served as a bulwark against Islamic expansion into the West. But thanks to these well-intentioned crusaders, that barrier crumbled like a sandcastle at high tide. And guess what happened next? It only took a mere 150 years for the birth of the Ottoman Empire, the first ever Muslim state in Europe. Talk about unintended consequences. In a twisted turn of events, the crusaders inadvertently ended up aiding the very Muslims they set out to conquer. Their grand gesture of clearing the path to the west for Islamic forces resulted in centuries of Bulgarian, Serbian, and Greek suffering under the oppressive Ottoman yoke. And the final act, the conquest of Constantinople in May 1453 by Sultan Mehmed II, marked the grim end of the Byzantine tragedy that had dragged on for nearly 250 years. Now, naturally, such a heinous crime needed some serious spin doctoring to justify and paint those crusaders in a positive light. So from the 13th century onwards, Byzantium has been systematically smeared and dragged through the mud. It's like a never-ending PR campaign to portray the Byzantines as a bunch of depraved lunatics ruling over a cesspool of sadists, eunuchs, pathological killers, and schemers. Ah, history, where the lines between heroes and villains blur and the truth often gets a healthy coating of mud. Join us next time as we unearth more outrageous tales from the annals of the past. And remember, folks, history may be stranger than fiction, but it's certainly not lacking in drama, intrigue, and a healthy dose of absurdity. Ah, the Ticklers of Empresses in Imperial Russia. Now there's a profession you won't find in the classifieds these days. Back in the days of the Tsars, tickling was no laughing matter. It was a serious job, folks. Those who mastered the art of tickling could serve the mighty Serena herself. The task of a tickler was to stir up, arouse, and entertain the Russian empresses. Tickling wasn't just some quirky form of foreplay. Sometimes it was the main event. And guess who had the exclusive rights to this profession? That's right, ladies only. Through discipline and perseverance, these individuals honed their skills to unprecedented heights. And let me tell you, being a skilled tickler paid quite handsomely. The tickling process was accompanied by the singing of ribald ballads and the recitation of erotic tales. Princess Anna Leopoldovna reportedly had about 6 ticklers on her payroll. There's evidence to suggest that many Russian noblewomen indulged in this professional service. The most famous tickle enthusiast of the time? None other than Catherine the Great herself. But hold your tickling feathers, folks, because Russia wasn't the only place where such practices flourished. If ancient Egyptian records are to be believed, Queen Hatshepsut employed anise oil to prepare her feet for a tickling ritual before engaging in sexual acts. A eunuch would tickle her feet with a peacock feather until she reached the pinnacle of excitement. Talk about an unconventional warm-up routine. Feet, my friends, are an incredibly sensitive zone. According to modern research, tickling activates areas of the brain responsible for both pain and touch sensations. So if anyone ever questions the importance of a tickler, you can confidently say that they were stimulating both pleasure and pain in the pursuit of ticklish ecstasy. Who would have thought that tickling would have such historical significance? Remember, folks, laughter is timeless, and even the oddest stories can bring a smile to our faces. The Warren Cup, a saucy little thing that even the British Museum Secretum deemed too naughty for its collection. In 1865, the British Museum established the Secretum, a private section where all artifacts considered scandalous in Victorian society were stored. Most of these treasures came from none other than George Witt, a London doctor with an extensive collection of phallic paraphernalia. To gain access to the Secretum and view its exhibits, one needed special permission, as if it were a secret society for scandalous artifacts. Now, throughout its century-long existence, there was one particular object that was considered too risque even for the Secretum: the Warren Cup. Picture this: a silver Roman goblet adorned with a depiction of a homosexual act between 2 men on one side and a man with a little boy on the other. It was the cup that raised eyebrows, turned heads, and made prudish Victorians clutch their pearls tighter than ever. In 1999, the British Museum coughed up a whopping £1.8 million to add this naughty chalice to its collection. Talk about an expensive piece of history. Sexual depictions were quite common in Roman art, although surviving scenes of heterosexual encounters significantly outnumber their same-sex counterparts. But hey, we can't assume that homoerotic art was rare or scandalous back then. Modern records can be biased due to selective destruction or the suppression of homosexual works in later times. So let's not jump to conclusions, folks. These illustrated drinking cups, often presented in pairs, were meant to spark conversation during dinner parties. Roman artworks on ceramics, glassware, and wall paintings featuring explicit sexual acts were popular and intended for the viewing pleasure of all social classes. Who knew sipping from a goblet could also be an educational experience? So there you have it, folks. A scandalous cup, a secretive collection, and a museum that's no stranger to the wild side of history. History may be filled with grand events, but it's the cheeky details that truly tickle our curiosity. The infamous Porta Tosa, or, as some may call it, the Shaving Lady Door. For 4 centuries, every traveler entering Milan passed under this peculiar relief, until some prude decided to remove it. Can you believe it? All this time, the city of Milan welcomed weary travelers with the image of a woman shaving her own intimate jungle. Talk about a unique welcome mat. Nowadays, the lady is proudly displayed in a museum, but no one is entirely sure of its true meaning. However, there are a few intriguing theories floating around. The most popular story recounts the brave feat of a young Milanese woman during Friedrich I Barbarossa's attack on the city in 1162. Legend has it that she fearlessly climbed the city wall, hiked up her skirt, and trimmed her nether regions despite the approaching invaders. The enemy troops were so shocked by this sight that they turned tail and ran. Talk about psychological warfare at its finest. Of course, there's a chance this tale may be slightly exaggerated because historical records actually state that Milan lost the battle and the city was stormed and burned. Oops, but hey, let's not let facts get in the way of a good story. Another explanation suggests that the sculpture might depict a rather progressive representation of a fertility goddess, or maybe even Friedrich Barbarossa's wife. Just a little personal jab from the Milanese folks to the guy who wrecked their city. Here's another theory for you. The lady could be a depiction of one of the city's prostitutes who were required to keep their nether regions neatly groomed for the sake of sexual hygiene. So, after the people of Milan swept away the rubble that once was their homes, they figuratively shook their genitals towards the emperor. Quite the rebellious gesture, huh? In any case, the shaving lady door does bear a striking resemblance to an image of a girl peeing on all passers-by. And there you have it, folks. A bizarre door, historical battles, and a city's unique way of expressing itself. Ah, Julius Caesar, the conqueror extraordinaire. But did you know that during his reign, he had plenty of political opponents who dubbed him the Queen of Bithynia? Yes, you heard that right. Rumor has it that Caesar was secretly the lover of King Nicomedes IV of Bithynia. It supposedly happened around 80 BCE when a young Caesar arrived there as an envoy. Now, Julius Caesar himself didn't do much to dispel these rumors. In fact, he made several more visits to Bithynia, clearly using any excuse he could find to pay a visit to Nicomedes. One must remember that Julius Caesar was quite the catch. Tall, slim, impeccably built, with a chiseled masculine face and a strong jawline. And let's not forget his extraordinary self-confidence that he displayed since childhood. Whenever he had the chance, he would flaunt his superiority over those around him, accompanied by his biting wit. With such a bold young lad on the scene, envy was bound to follow. Now, these stories may very well be just rumors, but there's one thing we know for sure. Nicomedes had no children and bequeathed the rule of Bithynia to his allies, the Romans. So, whether there was a passionate affair between Caesar and Nicomedes, or it was all just gossip, one thing remains certain. Caesar's conquests extended beyond the battlefield. Ah, the intrigues of ancient history. It seems even the mighty Julius Caesar had his fair share of scandalous tales. The infamous Cockle Bread. According to Muller's classic dictionary, we have several options here. Seedling cockle, intoxicating weed, wrinkle on paper or fabric, and even edible mollusk. Talk about a diverse range of meanings. For instance, an Old English etymology dictionary from 1968 suggests that the word cockle may come from the Old English word sauce-call, which means thigh. But let's dive into the spicy 17th century, where the sexual connotation wasn't directly attributed to the bread itself, but rather to a dance that involved baring buttocks and mimicking sexual activity known as the cockle bread kneading, made from mollusks. According to the words of the 17th century writer John Aubrey, young maids have a game they call Cockle Bread. They get on a table board and set their knees as high as they can and hold up their clothes as if they were kneading dough. Often it was the maids, those mischievous troublemakers, who recited verses mentioning cockle bread during the act. Aubrey suggests that this tradition might have roots in ancient rituals of natural magic, where the girls actually kneaded the dough with their buttocks, presenting it to the man as a gesture of special romantic longing. Oh, the curious customs of yesteryear! It seems that even in baking bread, our ancestors managed to infuse it with a healthy dose of innuendo. The curious tale of the What the Butler Saw. It seems that William Dixon, the unsung hero of early cinema, had quite the knack for innovation. While most people today have forgotten his name, it's astounding considering his contribution to the creation of early films. Starting off as Thomas Edison's assistant, Dixon played a vital role in designing and constructing the kinetoscope, a device for displaying Edison's films. But he didn't stop there. Oh no, Dixon went on to establish his own company and built the mutoscope, Edison's contraption's fierce competitor. The mutoscope used enlarged photographs to enhance the image quality, giving viewers a visual treat. Now, let's dive into what the butler saw. It's a reel of the mutoscope, an early example of the risque films of the early 1900s. Picture this, a scene where a woman is partially undressing in her bedroom, as if some cheeky butler voyeur were peeping through a keyhole. How scandalous! To view this titillating film, one had to drop a coin into a standalone viewing machine, which would then release the handle on the viewer's side, allowing them to turn it, revealing the steamy secrets within. Oh, the lengths people went to for a naughty thrill in the early days of cinema. From inventing contraptions to devising clever mechanisms, it seems that our ancestors were quite inventive when it came to satisfying their curiosity. All right, folks, if you've enjoyed our hilarious tales and want more laughter-inducing content, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and drop us a comment on this video. We need your support to keep the laughter train rolling. Remember, it's not just history, it's hysterical history. Bye.